Thank you. Well, we've been just joined by Mr. Labrador. If you'd like a few minutes, we are going to go to a second round, or you can be recognized now, or both.
I'll just ask a couple of questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Martin, you state in your written testimony that the National Water Resources Association and other water users are currently reviewing no less than 7 agency rules currently out for comment that have the potential to seriously impact water users. Many of these rules are so complex, it's almost impossible to understand and review each rule because of the heavy volume. In your experience, are agencies interested in an open and transparent process that includes input from the water users?
Well, as stated earlier, the Forest Service groundwater rule was done in a vacuum. It was not done with any sort of input to our knowledge, and we are some of the biggest water users and rely on water within the Forest Service. It is difficult. These rules are hundreds of pages long, and to get through them in the short period of time is a very difficult process.
So the EPA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers claims the proposed rule clarifying the waters of the United States under the Clean Water Act will not expand federal jurisdiction. Can you give some examples and possibilities of how the proposed rule will indeed expand the EPA and Corps authority over millions of acres?
I believe even the EPA and Corps have determined that there will be an expansion of jurisdiction. The question is just how much. And for the people I represent, our biggest concern are ditches, canals, artificial conveyances that on the surface appear to be excluded, but if you look behind the terms in the rule itself, it looks like they may be back included.
Okay, the EPA and Corps released the proposed rule in an effort to clarify protection under the Clean Water Act for streams and wetlands. However, the proposed rule has raised numerous questions about definitions in the rule and how they impact irrigators, water companies, and other water users. What are some of the areas in the rule that lack clear definitions and require further clarification? And I'd like all of you to answer that question as well. But we start with you, Mr.
I'll start right off, and just right off the surface, it's ditches and artificial conveyances and what's in uplands. Those are two of the biggest issues for my clients.
Okay.
I would agree with those. I think you have the tributary definition that may be expansive, the upland question, and the shallow subsurface water, which in our lexicon would be groundwater.
Well, of course, I'm not the water expert, but I'm sorry. Would you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the areas in the rule that lack clear definitions and require further clarification?
Well, I think we're hearing that from the other witnesses today, and I think that this is the comment period at which time they can ask EPA for that clarification.
Okay.
Yeah, from a farming and ranching standpoint, you in Idaho understand this very well. We do a lot of diversion of streams into irrigation and do flood irrigation across farms and then return flow because somebody has a downstream right to that water. I met with Region 8 EPA 2 weeks ago and I asked about the exemption on return flows. And if that water runs across a farm, is delivered into an irrigation ditch and then returned to the stream, the Region 8 EPA expressed an interest in that now becoming a point source of pollution, and that changes the whole dynamic, Representative.
All right, thank you. Mr. Clark, what are your thoughts?
I think it's most easiest to point to, and we've mentioned the upland definition. I think my biggest concern is even if you can clarify a definition, is getting a consistent application of those tasked with enforcing what may appear to be clear, but often isn't consistent.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.